Hello world and welcome back to another rainy day devlog. To get started right away here, the basic core gameplay that I envision for rainy day will be to simply stack and balance falling objects within the screen. And for the past week or so, I have been working on the core gameplay prototype and have managed to accomplish basic horizontal player movement as well as spawning a randomly generated amount of falling objects from an object pool. I'll switch over to Unity to show you what I've done so far. Okay, so right now the balancing of the stack as well as the stacking mechanic itself is far from perfect, but for writing little to no code at all, it's pretty good, and that is thanks to Unity's physics engine. All I had to really do to achieve what you see was tweak gravity to slow down the speed of the falling objects, as well as tick checkboxes to constrain their positioning and rotation. This is a mechanic that I will polish more and more as I go. But in terms of how I move the player character for this game, I couldn't just alter its transformed opposition per frame because this method will ignore some physics and will cause funny behavior throughout the whole stack. The game objects are rigid bodies, so I had to specify that and move them quote unquote properly with rigid body dot move position to get what I want out of how everything will interact in the game. This makes it so that the movement of the player actually fills a space in the game's world instead of it teleporting to its target position and leaving gaps. It prevents occurrences such as the player teleporting into a space taken by another object. Hopefully that makes sense, but it is the correct way to move a rigid body in Unity if you are planning to use its physics engine. In the same but different way for how I move the player, the stacked objects move to follow what is below it, based on the player's horizontal input. When they fail to get stacked, they continue to descend down due to gravity and ultimately get shredded by an invisible wall with a collision detector. This shredder disables the game object, puts it back into an object pool, and gets enabled again once it is needed based on time. For game developers, use object pooling because it's a powerful optimization design pattern, especially when you need multiple copies of a specific game object. A common example is bullets. It is better to pre-instantiate each individual bullet and activate or deactivate them when needed than to create or destroy them every time at runtime. So for rainy day, I pre-instantiate a pool of falling objects to simply activate when need be. And before I end this devlog, I just want to express the importance of having the mindset of documenting rather than creating. I almost held back into documenting and putting this devlog out there because I didn't have a perfect stacking mechanic yet. The mindset of document, don't create goes hand in hand with marketing because it helps projects create some sort of traction before its full release. It's very rare for a project to become successful just by plainly publishing it without any marketing prior to its release. What I'm trying to say is that we don't have to wait to market our games or feel like we have nothing to show yet until it's released. It's another mistake I've made before, and I hope you won't. People love seeing the journey it takes to create something, and it affects how people will value the end product. Of course, it won't be all pretty. It isn't the final product. Just start. You don't have to be a professional or create content to meet what people want to hear about. Like I'm just a person on the internet. But I will leave it with this. Start with what you know, what you care about, and share that. And that's it for the video. Thank you for listening. Consider subscribing here and on my website down below to become a beta tester for rainy day once it's available. It's all free, and join my community on Discord where we can take on challenges together and engage more closely. Lastly, special thank you to my website supporters who donated in August. Thank you, Laura Milligan.